101.
Okay.
After Shabbos, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Amuka Asara Vengvo Asara. If the boat is 10 tefachim deep into the water, but the distance between the top of the boat and the water, when you're a passenger on the boat, is less than 10 tefachim. Metaltilin misochel hayam. You can carry from the boat to the water, but not vice versa. Avalo min hayam letocha, but not from the water into the boat. Now, why not? Maishna min hayam letocha delo. Why can't you transfer from the water to the boat to come atop and make karmelis? We've defined a body of water as a karmelis. The Chachamim forbid us to transfer from a karmelis for sayachid. So mitochal yam nami. So why should it be different transferring from the boat to the water? Must be we're talking about that you did it like we said. You throw the water on the floor of the boat and it drips by itself into you do it like in a two-step fashion. You don't do it directly into the water. Where we said it's because your kocha, we're not goizer by karmelis. Shmami no, kocha, but karmelis lo gazru. So shmami no. Seems to be a good right. Amravuna. Hana bitziosa de Meishan. These are little boats that would not travel in the ocean, but would travel in the rivers. So they're wide on top, but very narrow on the bottom. So they're not daled by daled on the bottom. So ein metalton bahem ela barba. It's not considered Rosh Hashanah, the boat. And since the boat is sitting in a karmelis, you're not allowed to walk more than 4 amos in a karmelis. Lo amar lo she'em pachos mishlosh arba. That's as long as there isn't arba tefachim by arba tefachim within 3 tefachim of the bottom of the boat. But if the boat is not so narrow that on the bottom of the boat it is daled by daled, so that creates a good Rosh Hashanah, and then you can carry it. But and the ima linu kind of urbani, if you filled up the boat with reeds and to a certain height, which would also fill up a space daled al daled, then it would also be permitted. Let's learn. Asking Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman asks the following question: the lema good achas mechitzasa. Now, if the Gemara's question now is like this: if the top of the boat is wide and then it narrows to narrowing, why don't we use a concept called good achis? Means we drop a fictional wall down from the sides of the boat, so you create a fictional box that's more than daled on daled. Why do we have to go through this business that it's got to be daled on daled on the bottom? Why don't we use good achis? Haven't we learned Milo Tanya? Here we're going to see the source for good achis. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Noatz kana b'Rishus Harabim. You have a pole in the Rishus Harabim. Uverosho truskal, and on the top of the pole is a basket, like James Naismith inventing basketball. And the basket has 4x4 tefachim. So what we do is now remember we've learned that if you have in Rosh Hashanah something that is 10 tefachim high and daled by daled tefachim wide, it creates Rosh Hashanah. Now here, the pole itself is not daled al daled. Only the basket on top of the pole is daled al daled. So we see the halacha here is using this principle of good achis. We're drawing a fictional wall down from the sides of the basket to make this thing in the Rosh Hashanah as if it's completely daled al daled, even though it's only on the top that's daled al daled. So zarg v'nachal gab of chayit. Alma, I mean, in good achis, mechitzasa. So we see Chazal use this concept, Hachanami, why don't we say here by the boat? That's Daled al Daled wide on the top, but the boat narrows so that on the bottom it's not Daled al Daled. Why don't we say Good Achas B'chitzasa? So that's one kasha. Masking for Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef says, V'lo shmielu v'lo Rav Yudah Marav. Didn't you hear what Rav Yudah Marav said about this? Umatu b'mishum achir. Some say it's Rav Chia who said it. Tani Allah, the Chachamim poitrim. The Chachamim argue with that. Rav Yosef, Rav Yehuda holds that it works, but the Chachamim argue. So the Chachamim are the same Chachamim here that say by the narrow boat on the bottom, it won't work. What? You don't yourself hold that everybody accepts Good Achis? Everyone accepts Good Achis. Vatanya. Amud b'shus harabim gabo asara b'rachav arba. You have a post, not a post. You have like a structure in Rishus Harabim that's 10 tefachim high and 4 wide. But the aim be ikaro arba, at the base of the structure, it's not 4, but it's not a pole, right? A pole is much more flimsy. This is a structure that's been built, but it's been built so that it's wider on the top than on the bottom. Maybe ikaro yesh because of shlosha, it's 3 at least on the bottom, but not 4. V'zorak v'nachal gabov, and you threw from the Rishus Harabim to land on top of this structure. So you're not allowed to transfer from Rishus Harabim to Rishus Hayachid. Now, why is that working? Because again, we use the principle of Good Achis to drop from above to the bottom. So as if we say the whole structure is dal dal dal. So you see, I'm reading on Good Achis Mechitza. Even the Chachamim hold of this concept of Good Achis. Hachanami by the boat should also be Good Achis Mechitza. Versus media area, what you're comparing apples and oranges? Can't be. Hasam Habile Mechitza Shagdeim Boikimbo. By the fictional, you can't compare the case of the pole, narrow pole with a basket on top of it, to this case. Because the case of the pole, it's just a fictional concept. If there were goats there, they could easily come to walk in from outside to the inside towards the pole. But hacha, in the case of this post, here there's a structure on the bottom. Fine, it's not dal, but the goats would not be able to make it all the way in there. So the Gemara wants to say that's why it's not comparable to the case of the pole. That's why there the Chacham will agree that there's Good Achis, but they would not agree by the boat. Fine, there's no goats there. But if you're going to use Good Achis by the boat, what about the fish? Fish could make their way in towards the center. That's not called boikimbo, because they're not seen, as opposed to a goat. Now, umenot temra. Now, how do we know that that concept exists that would make a distinction between fish and goats? The boy mine Rav Tavlin me Ravi. We see that from the Rav Tavlin asked a question from Ravin. Mechitza tluya. So there is a principle that if you have a reshus that's open on one side completely to another reshus, so that reshus becomes batal to the reshus that it's opening up to. So let's say if you have a ruin and one side of the wall is completely open to Rishus Harabim, so the ruin is going to become usher to carry in it, even though normally a churva is a Rishus HaYachid. You should be able to carry whatever you want in there. Because one side of the wall is opened up into Rishus Harabim, the whole churva is considered Rishus Harabim. However, let's say there's a wall that's a suspended wall that's hanging from the top. It doesn't go all the way to the bottom of the floor because it's a ruin. It's called a suspended wall. It's similar in concept to what we said when you build a structure of 4x4 and you hang it over the side of a boat and you can reach in. That we also said, we said that was a suspended wall, but the Chachamim there were mekel. So the Gemara says like this: Mechitza tluya ma'u shetate b'churba. If you have a ruin that's opening up to the Rishus Rabbi, but you have a suspended wall hanging from the churba, maybe that'll allow me to carry within the churba. It's considered enough of a wall that I can carry there so that it would not be completely opened up into the Rishus Rabbi. This kind of suspended wall will not permit except what we described, like Rashi says, we create a frame 4x4, that if you make a suspended wall outside of the boat over fresh water, you can sort of fictionally drop those walls to the water, and you can lift a pail of water from there into the boat. But that's only because of water that they allowed you to do it. Because kalu shekel chacham b'mamai. And the question is, why would those things work b'mayim? Ha'ika b'kiyas dugdogim. A suspended wall, it's not, there's nothing there. Fish would be swim in there. And that some, like for example, by a sukkah, when you have walls coming down to the ground, if the wall does not reach within 3 tvachim, we don't say lavu, right? We don't drop the wall all the way to the ground because we say k'dim boikim bo. So if physically animals or something could break through a fictional wall, we don't treat it as a fictional wall. So how come here fish, even though they could penetrate, don't ruin this suspended fictional wall? So here's the raya, that fish, since we don't see it, we don't use this principle that the bikiyas, that the fish that they can swim in there will ruin this fictional wall. Okay. Sfinos kshuros. The Mishnah said that if we have 10 boats, they're all tied together. So if there's one owner, he can travel from one boat to another boat, no problem. I'll consider Rishus HaYachid. And they all belong to him. Then we said, if the boats don't belong to him, one is his, one is somebody else. So as long as they're tied, you can make an Eru Chatzeros. And just like I can carry in an apartment building from one apartment to another apartment as long as there's an Eru, I can do the same thing here. So the Gemara says, Pshita. I mean, we know all these halachas. It's the one rishus. Why shouldn't we carry from one boat to another? Amar Rava, loy nitzruch el lahater bitzish b'nei. Something else. There's a little rowboat in between these boats, and you can travel from one boat to the other with this little rowboat. Amalei Rav Safra, Moshe, Shapir Kamet, like Moshe Rabbeinu, someone like you, like Moshe, are you saying correctly? Metaltalin mizula zutna. Our Mishnah says you can carry from boat to boat. It doesn't say you can use a third-party intermediary boat to go from boat to boat. El Amar of Safra. So then what's the chiddush? So lo nitzroch la arev uletaltel mizulazu. We have to be told that if the boats are not owned by the same person, then you have to make an eruv in order to be carried, but they've got to be tied. Otherwise, the air doesn't work. There's another brisa that states it more explicitly. That if you have boats that are tied up, you can make an eruv chatz. How do you make the eruv chatzeros? Two parties buy, they each give $1. They buy a box of matzahs. they put the box of matzahs in one of the boats, it's considered as if all of them own the box. It converts the 10 boats, which technically you could look at as 10 different reshuyos, as one reshus. Same thing in an apartment building. When all the Jews in that apartment building donate $1 and they buy a box of matzahs, they put the box of matzahs in one of the units, and if they're living there, you have to do schiras from a goy, you have to rent, you have to give the goy, they have to create some kind of rental from the goy, you have to give the goy some money so that they've rented you their property. What does this all accomplish? It accomplishes that it's as if they're all living in one unit. Because the problem, what's the problem carrying from one Rishus HaYachid to another? They're both Rishus HaYachids. Chazal made a gzeira. If I think I can go from one Rishus to another person's Rishus, I might think that I can carry an Rishus HaRabbi. So they made a gzeira that you need to make an Eruv, which is a hecker, to allow you to do this. So that's only works by the boats if the boats are tied. Nifsaku Nesru. If the rope is broken, so it's usr. Now, there's another din that you're not allowed to lay down an Eruv on Shabbos itself. This Eruv process has to be done Erev Shabbos. You're not allowed to make an Eruv on Shabbos. So let's say you had the boats were tied up together before Shabbos, and you made an Eruv before Shabbos. And then on Shabbos, it broke, but then somehow they got retied. Chazru v'niksharu, bein shoygin, bein mezidin, bein anusin, bein mutim, chazru leter narisha. We go back to the fact that you can carry from one boat to boat. Whether or not the boats were retied, the shogeg. Shogeg means either I didn't know it was Shabbos, I didn't know it's prohibited to tie them up. An onus occurred, an accident occurred, and somehow by an act of God, they got retied. Or even says so far the Brisa, if I'm amazing, I know that it's prohibited. If I tie him up, fine. I'm going to be I'm going to be guilty of a mlach on Shabbos. But at least the Metzias goes back to the way it was before, where they're viewed as if they're tied and I could carry. You have like tents or mats in Rishus HaRabim, multiple ones that are owned by different people. So ma'arvin and metaltal mizulazu. As long as you make an eruv, I can go from one to another mat. Niglalu nesru. Let's say they got rolled up, so you're not allowed to go from one to one. Chazru v'nifshu, somehow they got rolled back. Bein shogin, bein mezin, bein anusin, bein muatim, chazru l'tenerishon. Safety. Shekol mechitza shenasa b'Shabbos. Because if you made them, if you created a reshus on Shabbos, bein b'shogig, bein b'mezid, shma mechitza. You can't take away from the fact that there's a mechitza there. If you're not allowed to do it, but if you did it, the mechitza has halachic significance. So the Gemara wanted to use this brisa to prove what we said, that if the boats got untied and then retied, would be permitted. It's not so very this concept where Chazal said that if you make a mechitza on Shabbos, the mechitza works, that's only l'chumra. So for example, right now, there's no mechitza there's no mechitza there in Rishus HaRabim. And I throw a ball from the Rishus HaRabim to that mechitza. Well, I'm not chayiv anything because there's no mechitza, there's no Rishus HaYachid. But let's say on Shabbos I created a mechitza there, and I throw a ball from Rishus HaRabim and it lands into that area that was walled off by the quote-unquote mechitza that was built on Shabbos. I'm chayiv skila. So that means this heter, or not a heter, this concept that we said, that even a mechitza that you're not supposed to build, but you build on Shabbos is a mechitza, that's only the chumrah, to give you an isra, but nobody ever said that if you build a mechitza on Shabbos, you can then use that mechitza to carry within it on Shabbos. That's certainly osir midrabanan. That statement, which is an important statement that we just said, that the fact that you've created a machitza, and now you can be over malacha d'oraisa by throwing from Rishus Harabim into it, that's all if you did it b'mezi. But if I did it b'shogeg or I was an onus, it would enechanami, I'd be allowed here as well. And that's the ikar adin. Amar Shmuel, that which we said, if the boats are tied, I can carry from one boat to another. For example, I carry a key around my neck with a very, very flimsy string. So even if the boats were tied with a flimsy string, that's enough. So the Gemara doesn't understand. What's the case? So if it's tied with a rope that can hold the boats so that they don't drift away, pshita, we understand why it works. But if the rope cannot hold them, why should it work? So what's going on here? So we're talking about use the rope that could hold the boats. But Shmuel is talking about another halacha that's said in his name. It's not. So this has to do with the dinah of tumah v'tahara, that if a boat is tied with something and the rope or whatever the item, let's say it's a chain, is connected to a house where there's an ohel hamei, where there's like a cadaver there. So the din of a mace is if there's a mace in a house, everything in that room is tummy. So the tumah, we'll see if the item that is tying the boat to the ohel mace is of a certain character, it will transmit tumah all the way to the boat. This not. If the boat is tied with something that can hold it, maybe la tumah. The tumah will project into the boat. B'dover she'ein mamida. But if the rope or item that's holding the boat to the dock is something that's flimsy, ein maybe la tumah. It does not bring the tumah. And the Amar Shmuel, in any case, v'hu shekshur b'shashas barzel. Shmuel says this kesher has to be with a metal chain. And then the sfina would be an avatuma, as anything that touches a mace. Why? Le'inyan tumahu tichsiv b'chal al cheret. There is a special din that if something metal touches a corpse, so it becomes the same status as the corpse. Normally, when you touch something that's tummy, it drops down a level. So if something is an av, and you touch it, that thing that you touch becomes a rishon. If the rishon touches something, it becomes a sheni. But metal doesn't work that way. Metal works that it gets the same status as the item itself. By the way, Rav Shlomo Goren, we have a number of kohanim on the call. We have Harold, we have Peter. So there were many kohanim that wanted to go to medical school, and there's all sorts of questions. Can a Kohen go to medical school? He has to take gross anatomy. How will he do it? Like Rav Nachum Sauer he definitely told me that he was heading towards pre-med, but he was told by I believe Rav Moshe told him, or he got some psak, I think from Rav Moshe, that probably not a good idea, because you're going to be exposed to mason. But Rav Goren had a heter, it's a famous Goren of Rav Heter, that if you wear metal that came into contact with tumah, somehow that immunized you, and if a Kohen wore that, that would protect him from being exposed to Tumah. So I remember Tzvika and I were once learning the Sugya, and we had lots of phone calls. I remember we spoke to Rav Moshe Tendler and other people by the phone. Nobody accepted this heter of Rav Goren. Maybe in Israel they did, but most of the poskim did not. It's based on this concept.
He didn't accept many things that Rav Goren said.
Of course, yeah, of course. Rav Goren was very controversial, but Rav Goren was a huge Talmid Chacham, as you know, and he didn't just. It was dealt with very seriously. They took his suggestion extremely seriously. They had reasons to reject it from halachic grounds, but it was based on this concept of b'chalon cherev hu kameis. So cherev arei kechalon in. Aval inyan Shabbat, that's regarding Tumah. Aval inyan Shabbat kiven diyochla mida. So heker ba'almahu afilu b'chut asar. So the din is by this boat thing. It's only a heker. So we don't really need the rope to be a strong rope like metal that it could physically hold the boats together. Even if it's any kind, like for example, the strings we use to make an eruv. It's just a heker. The same thing over there. It's a hecher bilvad, so even a bechut sarvel would be enough. Okay. Shkoch everybody. Tonight, those who learn the Navi Shiur, 8 o'clock. Have a good day, everybody.
Shkoyach.
Thank you. Bye-bye.